that history's ever created. I'm not committed to nonviolence in any way.
Man or woman who hates communism the most, that is to say, the man or woman who knows the least about communism, is the man or woman who wants to know the least about communism. That is to say, snakes are my enemies. They come to bite me, and I don't even want to know what they look like.
We're going to see about stopping, regardless of what these people think we should do. Because school is not important, and work is not important. Nothing's more important than stopping fascism, because fascism will stop us all.
Hey, yo. What's going on, world? This is the Forest Podcast. It's your place to see the forest for the trees when it comes to politics and economics and things like these. This is Comrade Villain. I'm here with Pretty Bad Comrade.
That's right.
Partner in crime. Yeah. What's good, man?
Same old, man. You know, just watching the world burn and trying to stay above water. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, at least we're starting to go to like these PSL meetings and stuff, so it kind of feels like we're actually doing more than we were before. That's good.
Definitely gotta get back out there.
Oh yeah, actually, I forgot to tell you. I guess it doesn't really matter if I say this on mic or not. Chanson, he wants to like meet up with me and just talk about like, I guess, how much I want to be involved. So
Chance.
His name is Chanson.
Chanson.
And it's spelled not how you would think. Yeah, but anyways,
Chanson.
if you're available on Monday, you should come with me.
Okay, Chanson.
Yeah, but anyways, PSL, Party for Socialism and Liberation. They've had Black August because a lot of important things within the history of Black civil rights have happened in August. Maybe because it gets hot in the South. I don't know, probably. And like we just did a book reading a few days ago, George Jackson's Blood in My Eye. It's an amazing book. Highly recommend it. It will make you want to be active and do something. We had a Black August block party last night. I went to that. That was pretty cool. Had some poets there, food and stuff for the community, just trying to let them know this is a resource for them. So it's not much, but we're doing more than just sitting around and talking. So that's good.
How was the crowd? Was it?
It was pretty good. It was a lot of people I've seen there before, but there was also about the same amount of people that I hadn't seen before. Some of them were from the neighborhood. Some of them were the poets. They also have like a poetry night on Tuesdays, I think, at that same at the Pensacola Liberation Center.
Okay.
So that's pretty dope. But yeah, so we're doing stuff. I don't know how we got sidetracked on that.
The George Jackson thing was.
Yeah.
So did y'all just read?
We read like
parts of a chapter. How did that work?
We just read like 10 pages.
Yeah.
And then spent like maybe an hour talking about it, which was pretty cool. Yeah.
That's the one Van went to that one?
My brother Van did come with me to that one. And some kid named Dakota showed up. I say kid, man, I don't know how old he is, but he showed up. And Van knew him, and they had done music stuff together.
Oh, okay.
And apparently they were putting together, or Dakota and Sean were talking about putting together some music program for the kids, like a place that they could come record. So we started talking to them about that. We're going to help them put that together.
And what did Van think about? Because that was his first time he had gone to.
Yeah. I didn't grill him too hard because I wanted to interview him afterwards. I didn't, and we ended up making music. But I don't know, he said he liked it. He was very receptive to it. He came up to the block party afterwards, or a couple of days later, so that was good. He seems like he's down to help us build this little music program for that neighborhood. So
okay.
That's cool.
That's what's up.
Yeah. Shout out to PSL. I don't have much for this episode. I know you said you have a lot, so I'm going to let you go ahead and take over.
All right. So today we're going to talk about a little bit of debt history. Debt and sort of rentier history, I guess, if you will.
Rentier.
Yeah, that's like French, like the pronunciation of like rentier,
Hmm.
like
Okay.
landlord.
Yeah, renter. Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Rent seeking.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna zoom out, so we can see that forest. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And I wanted to talk a little bit about like human civilization. So
Okay, we're zooming way out.
zooming way out. So for hundreds of thousands of years, the human species we're like what 300,000 years old roughly. I think that's what
Yeah.
most scientists say.
Yeah, if you're like starting from like, I don't know where does that start? Neanderthals, probably a little before Neanderthals.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there was something before that or not.
There were, but I think when they're talking about the 300,000, it's not much more before that.
Right.
So yeah, okay. So again, like cavemen to now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I'm not going to talk a whole lot about that history, but for nearly all that time, we lived as hunter-gatherers, small bands and tribes, families living together, sharing what they had. If someone hunted an animal, the meat was shared. If someone gathered wood or fruit, it was shared. Life wasn't about contracts or ledgers or anything like that. There wasn't a concept of a debt in the way that we think of it now.
Mm-hmm.
Life was built around sharing and communal type of life.
In their relationships, if you were a greedy asshole, people would tell everybody else, and you'd get like shunning and getting I don't know, was exiled from the tribe. Like that's like death essentially. So
Right.
yeah, we didn't have to track stuff like that because anybody that started acting like an asshole, we just kicked them out and they die.
Basically, pretty much. And that's kind of intuitive. Like we understand that, and people sometimes, I don't know, I think we forget that.
Oh, for sure.
But one thing I want to mention is like even like the Thanksgiving. Everybody knows the story about the Native Americans, sharing
They saved us
food
with the corn.
yeah, with the colonists and everything like that, and that's largely because again, these societies were very communal, tribal. They shared everything. This was sort of the way of life. There was reciprocity. So I mean, this is basically how human civilization existed. For thousands of years. Most of human civilization was, organized pretty much in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But agriculture comes along, and people start to settle in villages and towns. Hierarchies emerge, and with that, new systems of debt and credit appear. But even here, early money wasn't coins in your pocket. People weren't walking around with a pocket full of metal.
Okay.
In Mesopotamia, temples and palaces recorded debts and payments on clay tablets, often measured in silver or grain. Most people were like subsistence farmers. Still lived day to day in community economies. So money was primarily just to the extent that it was used was a sort of an accounting tool.
Right.
To
keep track of these surpluses that they were having now.
Right. Exactly. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, the reason that I wanted to sort of talk about that is, I don't know. There's like this myth about like the barter
system.
The barter system.
Okay, what's the myth?
And well, that it
existed?
Yeah, that's the main myth. That the barter system wasn't used widespread. It was.
You telling me everybody wasn't trading cows for grain?
No, they weren't.
Yeah, because that'd be wildly inefficient, and I mean, it is wildly inefficient.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's mostly like social credit, like we were saying.
Mm-hmm.
To use a word that's been like sort of demonized you hear that when they talk about China now.
I was just about to say that.
They have a social credit system, which is a lie.
Yeah, man, you
by
get
the
too
way.
many, like Black Mirror episode, you get too many points. And
Right.
I don't know, they snatch you up or something.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
some weird throw you in a van.
Mm-hmm.
But so yeah, even in these societies where they did use money a little bit, but it wasn't in the way that we think. Most people were just doing like agriculture. You know, and if they needed something from their neighbor, you know, can I borrow this? And it was just like I owe you one type thing.
Yes.
You know, that was the idea.
Right.
So
Because it was hard to survive.
yes, because it was hard to survive. Now, what happened was though there was a fear of sort of a creditor class emerging. People like loaning stuff to somebody who was farming. Maybe that person has a bad harvest, can't pay that person back, and that person ends up in like some sort of debt bondage, or that person's land gets taken or something like that. So in order to prevent that from happening, the king or the leader of that society would normally routinely cancel debts. This is what they, had debt jubilee. And
Oh, really?
yes,
Interesting.
yes. So the idea behind this was to stop creditors from taking advantage of people, because you got to remember the kingdom needed people to pay taxes and build things and what have you. And if creditors started growing, then that erodes.
See, I thought it was like Robin Hood, where the king and the creditors were just trying to milk everything they can of the population constantly. And then Jesus came along. He was the one that had the problem with the creditors. What you're saying is that the kings, no, they were like, this is a fucking problem. This is why people like, I think it's hard for Americans to like think, how can someone live underneath, I won't say tyrannical rule, but authoritarianism even, king, something like that. Sometimes the king did shit like this for you. And be like, I like the king. He can fucking abolish my debts. I'm cool with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I was just saying that as sarcastically, as like because I think it is kind of like a myth that the feudalism and kings were just like constantly trying to fuck people over and get his, like they were capitalist almost. And I don't know, democracy broke that.
Yeah, well, a little bit. So we're getting a little ahead. So
right.
One thing I did want to play that clip from
Which one?
because he explains this better than anybody. But Michael Hudson,
Okay.
it's him kind of explaining this society.
Real quick, who's Michael Hudson again? I kind of know, but tell everybody else.
Yeah, he's an economist. He wrote a very famous book called Super Imperialism.
Okay.
But he's written a lot of other things since, of course.
Okay. And I didn't speed it up too much because it sounded goofy. But it was like 1.3, but it's a couple minute clip. So just bear with us, everybody. I'm assuming this is important. I heard it yet, but here we go.
All right.
Every Babylonian ruler did what every Sumerian ruler did. When they took the throne, they would cancel all personal debts and agrarian debts to start with a clean slate. And why did they do this? Every ruler had the same problem. Here's the problem that debt caused in Babylonia and Mesopotamia. If you had a bad harvest and you'd borrowed money during the year and the harvest failed, you couldn't pay. Or if you got sick, you couldn't pay. And if you couldn't pay, then you would owe the tax collector or the palace official money, and that would be paid interest, and you'd have to work, but there wasn't money. People didn't use much money for the first 3,000 years at all. Way down into medieval times, people only used money at harvest time when payment. During the year, most economies worked on credit. If you were in Babylonia and you wanted to go out for a beer, you'd go to the ale woman's house, and she would mark the price of the beer on a tab, just like people today will go to a bar and put it on a tab to be paid at payday. Well, in ancient times, the payday was the harvest. And when the harvest was put in any Babylonian city, you'd bring your harvest to the weighing house, and the grain and the crop that you would produce would be weighed out on the floor, and out of that crop, you would take the money that you'd pay the debts that you'd run up during the crop year. You'd pay the ale lady, you'd pay the temple, you'd pay the palace, you'd pay everybody, and then you'd keep what was left. Well, what would happen if there's a crop failure? If you couldn't pay, then you'd have to work off your debt to the creditor on his land, not your own land or someone else's or the government. And if you had to work for the creditor, then you wouldn't be available to work at corvée labor. Corvée labor was the public labor to build temples, to build walls, to build palaces, to build public infrastructure. And this labor would not be available to the palace. And if you'd have to fight in the army, suppose that a neighboring town attacked you, well, you'd be working for the creditor. You wouldn't have the army. So it was in the interest of rulers to cancel the debts, and they could do it because most debts were owed to themselves or the bureaucracy. The ale lady got her beer from the temples on credit, and if at the end of the year she would get all of the crop that was weighed out from her customers, and she'd pay the crop for what she owed to the temples for the advance of the beer that they had, and her obligations. So when there was a crop failure, the rulers like Hammurabi would say, "Well, we don't want the Babylonian citizens to fall into debt, so you don't have to pay the crop lady, the ale lady, and the ale lady doesn't have to pay what she owes to the palace. We'll have a clean slate."
Okay. Huh. I like that. It was a great explanation.
Right.
That was amazing. I'm processing it. But yeah, it makes sense because it's like civil service almost. It's like if your people have all their time taken up paying off these creditors by working their fields, because it wasn't like you go just work a job and get money to pay them off.
Right.
It's all crops. So that takes a lot of time. Then all these other civil service projects like roads, bridges, yada, 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 temples, which, but that can't be done. So yeah, makes sense. Yeah, the ruler would be like, no, it is like a power struggle too. But what's interesting is like the beer thing. So like you're a person, you put your drinks on the tab, but the person selling you the beer is getting their beer on credit from I guess the king. The king. That's probably, there were certain decrees like king owns all of the beer. So anybody makes beer, this is mine.
Yeah.
And then, anyways, they can cancel that shit out. I know there were certain decrees like the
Right.
king owns all the deer in the forest or shit
Right.
like that. But like, I don't know. I'm just trying to think about. It reminds me of that Too Big to Fail movie where Henry Paulson is talking to his wife and he's talking about like it's all a house of cards. A modern economy is built on credit.
Mm-hmm.
But like, nah, even those economies back then were also built on credit.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I never thought of it like that.
Yeah, I think, and he does a good job of breaking down that history. Just so listeners know, he wrote a whole book on it. There's a book called "Forgive Us Our Debts." It's based off the Lord's Prayer, and he also wrote a book called "Origins of Antiquity," I believe.
Okay.
But it talks about that period, like ancient society.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yes. And I also kind of wanted to. So, he mentioned Hammurabi, and I think we all have heard of
Eye for an eye, Hammurabi's code.
Hammurabi. We learned about that in high school. I feel like, I don't remember when I first heard about Hammurabi.
It's almost like, did they really teach us? I feel like they did though.
I feel like, I don't know where else I would have heard about it. I feel like it was in a school setting.
Right.
But I did want to just read a couple of his codes, just for reference.
Yeah, because it's more than the eye for an eye.
So here's one. If a man has a debt and a storm destroys the grain, or the harvest fails, or the grain does not grow through lack of water, in that year he shall not give his creditor any grain. He shall wash his debt tablet in water and pay no interest that year.
Act of God. Wash the tablet in the water too. I love it.
Here's another one. If a man has given his goods on a pledge for a debt, and the merchant has not drawn up a contract or has not taken witness, then the merchant cannot claim back the pledge. Let's see.
Hold on. Say that one more time.
If a man has given his goods on pledge for a debt,
Mm-hmm.
and the merchant has not drawn up a contract or has not taken witness, then the merchant cannot claim back the pledge.
Oh, so yeah, you can't just be like,
Yeah.
he said that this was the deal. Like,
Right.
Where's the agreement?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
If a man has borrowed money to sow his fields and a storm has flooded the field or carried away the crop, in that year he shall not pay his creditor. He shall dip his debt tablet in water and shall pay no rent for that year.
So that too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. If a man is in debt and sells his wife, his son, or his daughter, or gives them to forced labor, they shall work for 3 years in the house of the buyer or creditor. In the 4th year, they shall be released.
Dip the tablet.
Yeah.
That's interesting, though.
Yeah.
I got a debt. Hey, sorry, fam. Go pay this off for me. See you in a couple years.
All right.
Yeah.
But even so, it was understood like,
there's a limit to this
There's
shit.
a limit. We're not gonna let you be.
It's not indentured servitude like it was in America where they would just extend it forever.
Right.
That's what you hear about in America. It's a lot of European immigrants would come over and become indentured servants thinking I got to work like 10 years to pay off the boat ride over here. And then they just end up working the rest of their life because they're like, oh, you also got to pay for your house now. Oh, you also got to pay for the food that we're giving you. Oh, you also got to, and just, you're fucked.
Right.
So yeah, Hammurabi's like, no, absolutely not.
Absolutely.
Love it.
So yeah, I think that's pretty interesting, just understanding that history, because that's ancient civilization. That's
So what you're describing is like a power struggle between like centralized state power and creditors, essentially.
yeah, but it wasn't even so much of a struggle, except they tried to prevent it from becoming a struggle. I mean, that was like,
It's a struggle as it's springing up and they're stomping it out.
well, yes,
Yeah.
but they're stomping it out before it even becomes like an issue, because they understand like
Right.
like where this could lead to.
Right.
It's obvious, like, okay, if we want to keep some sort of economic stability and a tax base to provide services for our kingdom, etc., we can't allow a creditor class to rise.
Yeah.
So that was
Because it shifts allegiance.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that understanding gets lost in Greek and Roman society. So we're going to talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
So there's a break. Greece and Rome mark a turning point. Here, kingship largely disappears, and without kings, no one is left with authority to cancel a debt. Creditors face no counterweight.
So this is the birthplace of democracy.
Yes.
No kings, so they run into this unique situation.
Right.
Okay.
And I don't have it here, but I've, listened to Michael Hudson and some other speeches. But basically, he argues that in ancient Rome, the oligarchs or the creditors, or maybe in the Senate, sort of conspired to overthrow the king because they wanted to rule.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And they didn't want anybody getting in the way and abolishing debts.
Like Caesar.
Yes. Yeah.
Because he canceled the democracy to defend the republic, and then the senators killed him.
Yes, we're gonna get there, but
Nice.
Caesar. I mean, Michael Hudson actually argues that Caesar probably wasn't gonna cancel the debts. Caesar was actually heavily funded by a creditor, or an oligarch. That's how he got into the Senate in the first place, and was in debt himself. But there was fear that he was going to cancel the debts, and that is why they got killed.
But could you be in debt if you're the Caesar?
Yeah. So this is something I recently learned while I was
Okay.
researching about this. But in ancient Rome, in order to get into the Senate, you had to basically campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to campaign, you had to their version of campaigning was just throwing these huge festivals.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a popularity contest, essentially.
Right.
But that cost a lot of money, and sometimes people would get loans from other oligarchs.
So this is early campaign financing.
More or less, yes. Yeah. And that's what happened with Caesar. He got I think it was Crassus, which was the richest man in Rome at the time, or one of the richest men.
Mm-hmm.
Funded Caesar. So Caesar was actually in debt to him.
So him getting killed by the senators wasn't. Wait. Because they feared that he was going to cancel the debts. That was something else.
Well, no, they were afraid that he might cancel the debts, but Michael Hudson's argues
saying that they killed him and he probably wasn't even going to do that.
Yeah, he might not even done that.
Gotcha.
But they were worried about that.
Gotcha.
So yeah, but he wasn't even the first one. There was other ones that had been murdered before him for that fear or for doing it, I believe.
Okay.
I can't remember if I wrote that down here, but I did want to talk about a little bit about the emergence of sort of money a little bit more. Let's see. So Rome minted coins primarily to pay its soldiers. This is one thing that's not really well understood either, but coins were created to grease everyday markets. They were tools of conquest. Soldiers spent those coins as they marched. Then Rome demanded that conquered people paid their taxes in Roman coin. This forced entire provinces into Rome's monetary system. Even if they had never used coin before, now they had no choice. A farmer who once lived off his crops suddenly had to sell part of the harvest or his labor to get enough coin to pay Roman taxes. So this was something that was unique about Roman society.
Okay.
You started seeing coinage being used to fund these armies in the Roman Empire. And then
Yeah, because they can't be, you can't be paying off your debts growing crops if you're a soldier, like you're a full-time soldier.
right.
You said grease the market or whatever, allow, some liquidity.
Exactly. And so one thing that I think is commonly misunderstood, even about money creation today, and it makes it clear, like in ancient society, is like, so the money was created as a way to create organization around the state, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as I was just reading, like, imagine you're a soldier, you go conquer a new territory, and you want to bring them into,
Bring them in the fold.
exactly under the new ruler, the Roman society. In order to do that, you say, look, we got these coins, we're going to buy stuff from you. You're going to need these coins basically because this is the tax that you have to pay at the end of the year or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So this goes back to the Roman coffers or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a way to make them kind of pay tribute as well. So that was a primary use of coinage. It wasn't people have this understanding that money or coins or whatever were for marketplaces, and they were used in marketplaces, but it was really to help expand the empire.
Right, because it was created by the people who were worried about creditors getting too much power. So it's like you said, it's not like coins are created by creditors to create this marketplace. It was created by the state to, create some elasticity in their expansion.
Yes, and to make sure that the new areas that they were conquering were tied to the state through this system, through this monetary system that they had.
Right. Well, even more than just like, I guess before it was you have to pay tribute, but the tribute is like, hey, we're the last people that are going to take over you. Roman Empire is huge, so like you're safe now, but because of that, you're going to have to pay us. And you can't just pay in wheat and shit anymore. You have to pay in these coins. Now you guys are
created,
really part of our
right.
society. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So, and this kind of gets to the idea of like I don't know if we've talked about this a little bit before, but MMT,
Modern monetary theory.
yeah. Mm-hmm. There's a misconception that that people have, the government taxing is taking money from people. And in a way, it is, but it's money that the government has created, right? So the government spends money into the economy, then it taxes it back out of the economy. Mm-hmm. Everything, all the money that's in the economy is money that was created by the government.
Right.
And that money gets taxed back out of the economy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, again, how society is organized. And this is essentially the same thing happening here. Okay. Money was created by the state, and it's taxed back out of the economy. And this ties everybody to the economy. You have to work for this coinage, etc. Mm-hmm. So it's a way
you're right. It's not like the government's taking your money.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, It is in the sense that you work and you got paid a wage, but you basically it's the government is creating demand for a currency that it created, right?
Right.
By taxing it.
And again, you also to ignore that to try to be like, yeah, it's the government just taking my money. It's ignoring like the social contract part of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so like that's something that people don't understand, like libertarians.
Right.
primarily,
Right.
like-
Specifically, that's exactly who I'm thinking about right now.
Yeah. So yeah, just kind of keep reading through this. So wealthy senators and creditors often financed Rome's wars. When the state couldn't repay them directly, the reward was land conquered. Was giving these creditors the land that they had just conquered. Over time, this produced the famous latifundias.
Famous. I've never heard of this. What is it?
It's
Latifundia?
Yeah, latifundia. It's just like a large estate.
Okay.
Vast slave-run estates owned by senators. These estates displaced free small.
Like plantations?
Yeah, it was kind of like a landlord serf.
Okay,
type
serfdom.
relationship,
Okay.
These estates displaced free small farmers who had once been the backbone of the republic.
They were the Walmarts coming in.
At first, Rome relied on citizen farmers. They paid taxes and staffed the legions, but as latifundia spread, smallholders were pushed off the land. The tax base shrank while senators grew richer, but contributed little to the treasury. And the senators' loyalty shifted. They cared more about protecting their estates than sustaining the republic itself. People who tried to reform this system were killed. The Gracchi brothers, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that
Gracchi.
right. Gracchi brothers in the 2nd century BCE tried redistributing land back to the poor and were assassinated.
They were the real Robin Hoods.
Yes. And Julius Caesar proposed debt relief and land for the landless and was also assassinated.
Took him out.
Rome's solution to debt wasn't jubilees, it was violence. So what ended up happening long term was Rome grew rich through conquest, but hollowed out its core. It could expand by only by conquering more territory, feeding more estates, and squeezing more taxes from the provinces. When expansion slowed, the system faltered. Oligarchy and fragmentation pulled the republic apart. So that was the real fall of Rome. That's why it fell, was because of the rise of a creditor, an oligarchic class that hollowed out its tax base and it couldn't finance itself anymore.
It wasn't just over expansion.
Exactly.
Or maybe a better way to say it is over expansion was kind of like product of what you just said.
Right. Now, I mean, if they would have expanded and continued to, discipline the creditors, the oligarchy, which the oligarchy basically became the Senate itself, right?
Right.
This was the problem. The Senate was full of oligarchs who were more concerned with protecting their own latifundias, their own estates, which had, sometimes had private armies and other things that they were worried about funding. And again, this created fragmentation, basically.
Gotcha.
And they weren't able to tax, people who didn't want to pay, the oligarchs didn't want to pay tax on the land that they were given, that they were, continuing to receive by conquering more land. So they were getting more and more land, but this land was privately owned, essentially. It was no longer being taxed to fund the state, and it fell apart.
The roots of private property becoming a problem.
Yes, yeah. Early seeds of that.
This is why Marx was about abolishing private property. Marxists don't.
Yes, not personal property.
Not personal property, everybody.
He doesn't want to take your shirt, just to be clear.
This is my shirt.
Just, you can't.
What? You want to take my bed? You have to sleep in a bed with some other dude? Remember that? Who said that to me?
No, I don't remember that.
Oh, fucking the pizzeria owner.
Who?
Our buddy's father's a pizzeria owner.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we were just actually talking about him.
Yeah, man, that's what it is. They take all your shit.
Yeah. Anyway, so that makes sense, right? I think that's important
like
to
it.
understand is because we don't get taught that's why Rome fell.
No.
Well, we don't get taught that in oligarchy.
It's funny when that meme was going around. How much time do you
The
think
white
about
men-
Rome or
Yeah,
something?
yeah, it was on TikTok. Like,
Yeah.
ask your boyfriend
Yeah,
how
yes,
much he
yes.
thinks about Rome. You know,
I remember
white dudes.
the girl I was
primarily,
dating at the
so.
time asked me, and I was like, none. Like, what are you? Who's thinking about Rome? What the fuck's going on in Rome?
Yeah, there's like this romantic.
Yeah, gladiator shit.
Yeah, they like to romanticize Rome as like the pinnacle of society. Well,
Yeah, you know who else like to do that? Fucking Hitler.
yeah,
Literally. Like his whole thing about the Aryan shit was tracing his lineage back to Alexander the Great and all this shit. It's like,
Right.
yeah, they love that shit.
yeah. I mean, all of Western societies
Conquering the savages and civilizing them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to talk a little bit about Jesus right quick.
about
Jesus,
Jesus.
because Jesus was a revolutionary of his day. By the 1st century CE, Judea was under Rome's taxation regime. Local temple elites were deeply tied to finance. Ordinary people were crushed under the Roman tribute and local creditor practices. These are some of the teachings of Jesus that were rooted in Jubilee. The original Greek reads, "Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors." Later translations softened it to trespasses, but the meaning was economic. Jesus opens his ministry with the Spirit of the Lord is upon me to proclaim release to the captives, to let. Hold on, let me start that over. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me to proclaim release to the captives, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. Okay. Oh, okay. This was the Jubilee language, the biblical command to cancel debts and restore land. So the Lord's favor, that it was basically a calling for Jubilee, essentially,
Okay.
for debt cancellation.
Right.
Which I didn't realize. But they don't.
Well, he flipped over the tables.
Yeah, the money changers. Many tie directly to debt, forgiveness, and economic justice. The money changers in the temple. The temple wasn't just a holy site, it was a financial hub. Pilgrims had to exchange coins in Tyrian silver shekels to pay the temple tax, and money changers profited. Temple elites were tied to creditor practices. By overturning the tables, Jesus was making a direct attack on the alliance of finance, religion, and empire.
So it's like a currency exchange.
Yeah, it sounds like.
Jesus said, fuck that shit.
So Jesus was popular with the poor, and his Jubilee message directly threatened Rome and the temple of authorities. He was executed not simply as a spiritual heretic, but as a revolutionary who attacked the debt and credit order of his day. So, yeah, Jesus was a revolutionary. All right, don't let people tell you different.
Bobby Sands said that. Well, I don't know if he really said it, but in that movie about him, Hunger, that scene where he's talking to the priest, he mentions that he's like, Jesus was revolutionary. Every one of the disciples and every one of you after just have no backbone. Like, you got in line behind him.
Right.
Yeah, it takes balls to fucking stand up
Right.
and die for this shit, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And given the context that we just gave about the society, it makes perfect sense. It was a debt-driven society. You had these oligarchic senators who were taking over more and more land, pushing a lot of people off of their land. And this guy Jesus comes along and is like, "Yo, this is trash." Has a following, has a movement, and they killed him just like they killed the other leaders in Rome. So,
Yep.
There
They're the
you go.
revolutionaries.
yep.
Yep.
All right. So, where did I want to go next? So I want
We're
to.
going from Jesus.
I did want to talk a little bit about the feudalism, a little bit. So, and just to be clear, after this is what basically starts the feudal period. It's the fall of Rome in many ways. What we think of as like the feudal nobility and kings and whatever, kings and queens, landlords,
Knights and
serfs.
shit. Serfs, yep.
This formed under Rome in many ways, and a lot of the nobility can be traced back to like Roman leaders.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep, right. These latifundias were essentially the same kind of structure. right?
Okay.
So all the fragmentation that happens, basically involves into the feudal system.
I gotcha.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So again, you had like without Rome being that cohesive, whatever superstructure, it falls apart and it's like a bunch of little mini Romes.
Right.
Yeah. The same thing happened in Chicago. They knocked down the 3 big projects. There was 3 big gangs. And now there's like 150 little gangs spread out over the world,
Right.
all over the city. It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah. Thanks.
So for centuries, charging interest on loans was considered usury. It was condemned by the church as immoral. Theologians argue money was barren and shouldn't reproduce itself. Lending at interest was considered predatory. Still, credit didn't vanish. It was outsourced. Jewish lenders excluded from land-owning guilds filled niches in finance. Italian merchants, the Medici, the Fuggers.
Medici, I know that name.
They were like a famous early banking.
Banks, yep.
Yeah. They managed loans for kings and popes. Credit existed, but it was controlled and viewed with suspicion. This is kind of a side note. I don't have this here, but I was reading about this somewhere else while I was looking into this. But this is where a lot of the anti-Semitism comes from. Is
the Jews were the creditors?
Yeah, but it wasn't their fault. They weren't allowed to do anything else.
Right.
Yeah, so they were pushed into crediting because they weren't allowed to own like land or farmland and stuff. Their occupations, because of the spread of Christianity,
Mm-hmm.
and like the Christians at the time didn't want like a rival. They didn't want Judaism growing, right? So they tried to sort of contain it by like restricting what Jewish people could do and what have you.
Gotcha.
So they were pushed into lending, and obviously,
Because that's like a behind the scenes thing.
yeah, and that led to anti-Semitism because a lot of kings and stuff would use Jewish lenders, and when things would go bad, they would blame, it's my Jewish creditor screwed you guys over.
Damn Jews again.
And that's
Got
where that comes from.
Okay.
But anyway,
Well, that makes sense.
yes.
That's where, what are they called? The things of Zion. You know what I'm talking about?
Elders of Zion.
Elders of Zion.
Is it
are?
Elders of Zion?
Elders of Zion, maybe. Yeah. That's like one of the major
The
propaganda
Hitler.
books that Hitler used.
Yeah. So it was, just to be clear, it was the system in some religious, fissures that caused this anti-Semitic trope, and it is a trope. All right, we should be criticizing capitalism
Mm-hmm.
and the structures that uphold it. Not
Imperialism,
imperialism,
not
et
a
cetera.
people.
Not a people.
Yes.
Exactly. So feudal obligations versus markets. Most peasants paid rents and tithes in kind, grain, labor, livestock. Daily life was not monetized. Lords extracted rents, but markets and wage labor were limited. Thinkers like Calvin began to justify interest as acceptable if moderate. This opens the doors to modern finance. Tension grows between old feudal nobility, landlords living off rents, and rising merchants and industrialists, capitalists who are seeking to expand their business.
Mm-hmm.
Landlords equal rent seeking, hoarding land, extracting surplus without producing. Capitalists were reinvesting profits, wanted cheap grain and free trade to fuel growth.
Got it.
So this is where you get the friction between
Serfdom and capitalism.
yeah
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, the landlords and the capitalists, but yeah, it's kind of like the same criticism of landlords today. You're not doing anything but extracting
Right.
wealth from the economy.
Right.
Yeah.
So for the landlords owned everything at the time because that's all there was, and you had this growing class that was like, okay, like we can't make money if you guys.
You give
own all the
BlackRock a
land.
couple years, bro. They'll own everything.
Well, that's what we're reverting.
We're on the way.
So yeah, and this I don't know if you ever heard of the Corn Laws.
Mm-mm.
Corn.
Corn,
Yeah, the
the
Corn Laws.
rock band in the 90s.
No, not exactly.
Boom.
But Britain imposed tariffs on imported grain to protect landlords. Industrialists backed the classical economists like Smith, Ricardo, Mill, that fought to repeal them. Their critique was the landlord rent was parasitic, driving up food prices and hurting workers and slowing industrial growth. The repeal in 1846 marked a win for capitalists over landlords. So this was like a struggle that was going on even until the 1800s, where basically the people who owned land were using the land to try to extract as much wealth from the population as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And this rising capitalist class had a problem with that, and this is what caused
It sounds very similar to the South and the slave owners and plantation owners in the South, and then the industrialists of the North, that they had a problem with slavery, not so much on moral grounds, but as of
right.
you're not getting down with this new industrial capitalist system.
Yeah, that's exactly a similar, their same dynamic, really. So I just wanted to briefly touch on the feudal society because the founding fathers in this country were very, of course, aware of this, and they tried to, I guess, in some ways, avoid some of the worst parts of like landlord rent-seeking type of economies, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk a little bit about the founding fathers because there are some misconceptions there, of course. Hamilton believed in welding wealthy creditors to the state. He advocated for a national bank, public debt, subsidies for industry, etc. This is a quote from him: "A national debt, if not excessive, will be a national blessing." His logic was if elites owned government bonds, they'd be invested in the republic's survival. He wanted to sort of model America early on like a Britain, because Britain was the industrial power at the time. It was the world power, and so he was much more sympathetic to this idea of the emerging capitalist class, and having some sort of central bank to help these capitalists develop industry, etc.
Yeah, but keeping them loyal to.
Yeah. He thought doing that would
Yeah.
merge them kind of with the state, and that
Right.
their interests would be within
With
the
a
state
line.
interests aligned. Exactly. Jefferson, on the other hand, and he was, Hamilton was considered like the Federalist, which is interesting because when you think of like the Federalist Society today, they're like anti-government,
Like a libertarian think tank.
yeah, they're conservative, anti-government, and Hamilton was actually
Anti-regulation.
a Federalist and was like, he was kind of like the big government guy. And he wanted the government to be big so it could help the capitalists and capitalist industry. Jefferson was a Republican, and his agrarian vision was, just small farmers would be the backbone of the democracy. He feared the concentration of financial power. This is a quote from him. I sincerely believe that banking establishments are more dangerous than standing armies. So he really was not fucking with.
A little bit of Mao in him.
He was not fucking with
One of the agrarians. Yeah.
banks.
Yeah. I like it.
He wanted decentralization, and he saw debt as a tool of enslavement. Early on, the Federalist 10 warned against factions. They feared debtors might seize power to cancel obligations. Later, they saw the danger of the moneyed aristocracy corrupting politics. Ben Franklin, he was sort of like the middle guy. He saw the good in both visions a little bit. So he said he advocated for colonial paper money, which was called scrip, I guess, at the time, which helped farmers in trade. He was sympathetic to ordinary people, but also believed in balancing creditor confidence with popular needs.
Trying to walk that fine line.
Yes. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about
Twice
that.
on the $100 bill, baby.
And even people like Adam Smith were very, who wrote The Wealth of Nations, were very critical of like this landowners, landlords, because again, they viewed them as rent seeking, that they were not part of the productive economy. They just made money off of owning a lot of land. So that's something that's not very well understood about the founding fathers. They were some of them were very suspicious of moneyed interest or monopolies. Adam Smith wrote a lot against monopolies as well, the British monopolies, and et cetera. So that's something that we really don't hear about a lot when you talk about the founding fathers and what have you. Obviously, they had a lot of faults, mainly that they owned slaves.
The
most of
slavery.
them.
It's almost like you have to put that aside. But
Right.
no, it makes sense because like really, you only when I hear about like I don't know, like monopoly busting or what's it called? What was trust busting? Like
Yeah.
that's not who Roosevelt.
Yeah.
But,
First
like,
Roosevelt.
Yeah, Teddy. But nah, like from the very beginning, even the godfather of capitalism, Adam Smith, was like, hey, this is going to be a problem. We can't let these monopolies happen. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, there was suspicion from the very beginning of monopolies, of landlords, and the founding fathers and the economists of the day, like Adam Smith and Ricardo, were writing about it. Again, like Ricardo was very critical of those the corn laws that I mentioned, because they basically helped the landlords. It was they were making money off just owning land, and he wanted to repeal the corn laws.
Right.
And ended up winning that argument.
Real quick, I only got about 15 minutes. I got a hard out.
Okay.
So you still got 2 clips too. Just want to remind you that if you want
Yeah.
to play one of those. But
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. So I did want to talk a little bit about the formation of the central banks. So basically, in the 1800s, there were a lot of boom and bust, a lot of speculation. Hamilton, actually, his vision kind of it wins out more or less. They do create some banks. It's not a central bank, but they have all these little chartered banks that are funding land speculation. Essentially, people are buying land, farming the land. There was commodity crashes though, like cotton wouldn't sell for as much, and people would lose their land because of that. So this caused like a consolidation of land, and people would buy land for cheap after a crash, et cetera.
That sounds familiar.
Yes, exactly. So ultimately, this fuels like a populist movement in the late 1800s. Farmers were demanding like debt relief and what have you, pushing for silver coinage. Treasury, they were pushed for silver coinage, sub-treasuries, and cooperative credit. There was a rhetoric often cast Wall Street as a new oligarchy. So this is how they were talking in the late 1800s.
Right.
In 1907, there was a banking panic that hit New York after speculation in copper stock collapsed. A major trust company, the Knickerbocker Trust, I think that's what
Not the Knickerbocker?
I think that's is that what the Knicks are named after?
I thought the Knickerbockers were like shorts, and that's what they were named after, but that would make more sense.
Yeah, I think so. Let's see. A major trust company, the Knickerbocker Trust, failed, and panic spread as depositors rushed to withdraw money. Banks froze up, credit market seized, and the stock market dropped by 50%. With no central bank to act as lender of last resort, the U.S. banking system was vulnerable to runs. This crisis was only stopped when financier J.P. Morgan personally organized a private bailout, corralling bankers in his library and forcing them to provide liquidity. So as you can see, that was like sort of the early stages of like, okay, we got to create some sort of central bank. And the central bank was eventually created just a few years later in 1913. Basically, the central bank was created as a way to protect financiers, primarily, not to protect the public.
The people, right.
Yes, which is the major point here. And now, and this is why there was like a stress on making, and we're seeing a lot of this now in the news, of making it independent, right? That it's supposed to have some sort of independence from the government.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because it's independent in the sense that it really is there to backstop financial crises,
Right.
to help the financial class, and not the broader public.
Right. To prop up the system.
Right.
Stop runs and stuff like that. Yeah.
Exactly. So just wanted to touch on that. So the 1920s speculation, the 1920s speculation, the Fed kept credit loose in the 1920s, fueling stock speculation and bubbles. Easy money for Wall Street, less support for farmers and workers. When the bubble burst in 1929, the Fed tightened credit to defend the dollar, deepening the collapse. Instead of acting aggressively as a lender of last resort, the Fed let thousands of banks fail, and that was between 1930 and 1933. Milton Friedman, and he's not a leftist, later called this a catastrophic failure. Fed inaction turned a recession into Great Depression. Farmers lost land, unemployment soared, deflation worsened, debt burdens, etc. Large New York banks that survived consolidated power. Smaller local banks disappeared. So basically, they created the Fed. There was a speculation bubble in the 1920s. A lot of this was like speculation around like the industrialization of America. People were investing in like in steel and all this other stuff, and that's what fueled the bubble. There was a collapse. And the Fed was created to kind of backstop those things, and it didn't even do that at that time.
Nope. Nah, fuck it. Let them collapse.
Yeah, which is interesting. I'm not quite sure what the logic there was.
Yeah.
But that resulted in the Great Depression, and this is what resulted in FDR coming to power. So FDR comes to power. Obviously, he was one of the more progressive presidents that we've had. He has the New Deal response. There was the Glass-Steagall Act that was created in 1933. I know you know the Glass-Steagall Act.
Yeah, the one that did it get repealed, or did they just redo it after 2008?
No, I mean it got repealed in the 90s.
Okay, it did get repealed in the 90s, and that helped exacerbate 2008, right?
Right.
What was the one that the Dodd-Frank, was that the one?
That's the one
defanged Glass-Steagall Act?
Yeah, exactly. The watered down Glass-Steagall.
But yes, again. So that was there to stop stuff like this.
Yeah, it was, just to be clear, it was supposed to be a firewall between commercial and investment banks.
Right, so you can't take somebody's savings and then put it in your investment side of your bank and invest in stuff to make money, like, because if your investments fail, there goes that person's savings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we did get a bunch of reforms like that. The Homeowners Loan Corporation refinanced mortgages, kept families in homes. That sounds like a good idea. Farm credit programs restructured loans and saved farms from foreclosure. The WPA Public Works, millions employed, new infrastructure built. These were not full debt jubilees, but they acted like partial ones, taking crushing burdens of households and redirecting credit to productive use. Keynes, John Maynard Keynes, yes, arguably the most influential economist of the 20th century.
Probably.
Keynes believed in laissez-faire capitalism, created crises by leaving too much power in the hands of rentiers, people who live off interest, dividends, and speculation rather than productive investment. He famously argued for the euthanasia of the rentier.
Hell yeah.
His point was excessive savings by elites strangles the economy. Public investment, housing, infrastructure, education was the solution to keep economies stable and growing.
Wealth redistribution.
Yes. Bretton Woods and post-war stability. In 1944, after World War II ended, the U.S. and the Allies created a new system at Bretton Woods. The dollar was pegged to gold, other currencies pegged to the dollar. This stability allowed trade and growth. Crucially, unlike the Treaty of Versailles, the U.S. forgave restructured European debts. The Marshall Plan allowed aid to flow to rebuild Europe, and this resulted in, Germany becoming an industrial power and all those other things.
And what happens with that?
Right, exactly. So what happens when you actually forgive people debts and you help their economies? Well, they become an industrial power like Germany did.
Yeah.
After World War II. So yeah, I know you said you have to go. So
I mean, we depending on how much you have, we can just pause and do a part 2.
Yeah, I think that's what we should do. It's probably.
All right,
I do have quite a bit more. So
did you want to play either one of these clips real quick?
No, because they're towards
those?
They're for the end.
All right,
so
cool.
We'll do a resume.
Well,
how long have we been going?
1 hour right now.
1 hour. We just hit an hour.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good then.
But yeah, this is really good. I didn't know a lot of this, so, and it helps me frame things. Helps my understanding of how I had things framed better.
Right. Yeah, that's the idea. Whenever I first encountered this history, I watched a video a couple years ago from Michael Hudson giving an interview about the book that he was just writing it at the time for Forgive Us Their Debts.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had never heard anybody frame like ancient society like that, or the fall of the Roman Empire. And it's like, okay, that makes so much sense. And there's so many parallels to be drawn there with our society today. So I think it's just a good thing. Good to know. We got to know the history, man.
Everything is economics.
Everything, for sure.
All right. Well, yeah, this is good shit. We'll pick up soon. I like this. Hopefully within the next day or two, we can just do out the next episode.
Yep, because I'm already ready. So
cool. All right, yo. All right. Peace, world.
All right, later.
There's no way to be committed to nonviolence in the middle of the most violent society that history's ever created. I'm not committed to nonviolence in any way.
The Republican Party and the Democratic Party are beholden to the interests of monopoly capitalism in this country.
The capitalist European and North American powers have carved out and taken the timber, the flax, the hemp, the cocoa, the rum, the tin, the cotton, the iron, the rubber, the bauxite, the slaves, and the cheap labor. They have taken out of these countries. These countries are not underdeveloped, they're overexploited.
The liberals are, at times, allies. At times, they're unreliable allies. So I don't want to just whitewash them. You've got to proceed quite cautiously with liberals.
The man or woman who knows the least about communism is the man or woman who wants to know the least about communism. That is to say, snakes are my enemies. They come to bite me, and I don't even want to know what they look like.
What's happened in here for the last 4 years? Brutality, humiliation, all basic human rights